Well, it looks like we're about 10 o'clock and time to get going. My name is Glen Branaman. I've worked for 33 years at Vacapena Middle School in Vacaville, and the last 7 I've been part-time up at the high school doing building trades and construction. I started using Sketchup probably about 2005 or so. When I first saw it in 2000 at Macworld, I hated it. It was, they were showing me stuff and doing things, and when I went back to try it, it just didn't work. And then I saw a guy at Macworld again, and he goes, oh, they forgot to tell you the one little tip. And the one little tip, I mean, with art programs, we're so used to clicking and dragging, but there's also a click and release. And when you click and release, then you can put in numbers for measurements and such and get them to work. And once I started doing that, then I started working with the students at the middle school on doing computer design. We left over an old HyperCard program that used to fold up into a house that a teacher made, and we went off into SketchUp. And so as far as kind of an itinerary or a look at what we'll be doing, oops, wrong one. Share. There it is. Basically, in working with this, the program I have on my computer right now you'll be seeing is SketchUp Make 2017. You can go back and go online and find lots of previous versions of SketchUp that you can work with, and you can download them to your heart's content. There is also SketchUp for Schools, which is an online version that works on Chromebooks. The one big thing about SketchUp is I really believe you're going to need to have a mouse. Some people say they can do it all with their trackpad and whatever, and I just don't find that real convenient, that you really need to have a plug-in mouse to be able to use it. The way I start things, and I listed this, and if in the chat you send me your email, I can forward this Word document to you, and you can have it then to follow along with. But what we start with is I take them into the students into the computer lab at the middle school, and as we take them in, and I've done it with kids at the high school too, but they go in and I show them these 4 basic videos. These were the first ones that kind of came out when Google originally started with SketchUp. These were the things that were out there. And so they start to explain to you different things that are going on in SketchUp. So there's just the new concepts videos, and these are linked to the videos in YouTube. Then they show you how to do drawing different shapes, and they take you through a few tools. And then they go down to using push-pull, where you really start getting into the magic of SketchUp. And in my note, it says that biggest thing is you need to be able to click and release when you want certain things to happen. So you don't.
Glenn, a second.
Oh yeah.
What I just did is I took a screenshot of this, which is a really simple way to get this stuff linked.
Very cool. Thanks, Don. And so as you take a look, then there's you get into the push-pull, and it starts getting into 3D management. And the last thing is they use it to create 2 different kinds of chairs. So that takes you through an additive method where you, well, first they do the subtractive method, which is more like carving. So if you were making the chair to be like taking a chainsaw on a log and cutting a chair out of a log. Then they do the additive version, which is more the way you really build something. They start out with a basic seat, and then they turn around and add the back, and then they add legs, and then do different things to it. There's also a pretty complicated version that they use a bunch of tools that we've never gotten into. And so after 15 years of using this, you come up with a lot of little tricks and tips, and half of them the kids will figure it out and go, hey, did you know it does this? Hey, great. That's the Brian rule. And you turn around and say, hey, you name it after them, and then you learn different things all over the place. So then at the bottom, it says there are many different versions of this. One neat thing about SketchUp is it's free, and there's a professional version, which is $600 to $800. And I've had a couple kids go home saying, Mom, you have to buy this for me. And it's like, wait a minute. No, you don't. Everything that's out there you need to do is free. And so as we take a look, the biggest thing that they have to start with is they start with the chairs. And so they go through and they do a subtractive chair first. And then I get them to save their work. They use it, they save it with table and chairs and put a student number in there. I give them a student number based on the roll sheet in the book and what semester and period it is. I've made up a system with that. And I have them save it so when it's in the computer lab, nobody else knows who it is really. There's no name on it and such. And again, in the videos, they will show you a lot of that. What I'd like to do at this point, did SketchUp change over? Did it change from Word to SketchUp on that? Maybe not.
Not yet.
So if I share my screen, it, let me see here.
Did you close SketchUp?
No, SketchUp, let me see, let's go new share.
You should have a choice of what you're sharing.
There we go. How's that?
Yeah.
Okay. So in the subtractive method of doing things, it starts out with just a rectangle, and the biggest thing I hated this for was you click and let go, and now you can stretch this out, and it's alive. And they tell you to type in 18 inches, comma 18 inches, and hit return, and there's your basic size of your chair. We'll get into push-pull, then you pull it up 4 feet long, and then as you zoom in a little bit, the steps will take you, and I just do this as a whole class. Everybody do this, and when they're at that point, we go to the next and go to the next. Then you get a pencil, make a line. Oops. If I make a mistake, I just press escape. I watch my inferences. Blue is the vertical axis, green and red are the horizontal axes. If you hover over a spot, it will pull it down and line it up for you and help. And there's the basic outline of my chair. Push pull all the way through to the other side, and now I have a basic layout. As working with this, or in working with this, I always kind of exaggerate and make it look not proportional so we can see how to fix it. So underneath, you work from the underneath side, pull this out, push to the other edge, and that gets that one. Then go to the opposite side. And again, I'm making this kind of ridiculously, oops, wrong. You make this so that you come back and adjust it later. So there's my basic chair. Now, when I orbit down, these aren't the same size. So I can use push-pull to start making these a little bit square. Then I can use inferring to touch one and make that one fit. Make that pretty square. I made a mistake, grabbed the wrong thing, so you press escape. Make that one about that big, maybe a hair bigger. And there's a chair. The last thing they have you do is they include and get you to use just a little bit of the tools because there's so many tools here. And there you go. So the chair. Now in a classroom of middle school students, 7th and 8th graders, this probably takes 3/4 to a full period, depending on if you've got 35 kids in the class and how talkative they are. A lot of people get lost. You can then also take and adjust this, make sure it matches well in the back, and you're pretty good to go. The next one, any questions on that? I know it goes really fast, but the videos tend to kind of take you through it a little bit at a time and go through it. For the additive chair, it's the same size, but instead of typing 18 inches, I turn around and I start changing them over. I think it's faster to go 1.5 feet, comma 1.5 feet. Get them to thinking in decimals. As we pull this up, the seat becomes 2 inches thick. Now we can zoom in a little bit, draw a line, put in the back. 1.5 feet, cut off the top. And pull it through. Now, the neat thing about the way these videos were set up, there are lots of beginning videos for SketchUp. One of the biggest deals about the beginning videos in SketchUp is I like the way this kind of adds a tool in along the way. So once you've gone through and done some of the basic tools, now they're going to use the tape measure tool. So if I click and let go and pull this out and type 2 inches, I can use construction or layout lines all the way around where my legs are going to go. Now I have to put a rectangle there. Erase my construction lines. And now I'm going to make the legs 18 inches long. 1.5 feet. Now I can use inferring.
Or double click will make them the same length.
Okay. And a lot of what I'm doing is I usually take in, I'm good on a lot of keyboard shortcuts, but some of them I just do them for where it is, just so that the students, I don't know, I'm trying to keep it simple and not give them too many things to remember. Now in this case here, this is trees grown roots into the ground, and it's not where it should be. So I'm going to use the selection tool to select the entire chair, the move tool to pull it up out of the ground and set it on the ground. Now, they're a little bit off. You can do manipulating to make them the same size. No big deal. What I do at this point, once this one's selected, I turn around, we get the paint bucket. And in the paint bucket, there is all of these materials over on the side that you can get. It will open up this menu. And inside of there, when you scroll to the bottom, it takes you down to wood. Now, a lot of the wood is more paneling and OSB and things, but they do have cherry. And so once you click on it, it makes it go pretty fast. If you don't do that and you start doing this, then all of a sudden it just takes forever and you have to flip it all around. Well, once you've grouped it and put it together like this and selected it, it'll all do it at one time. One big thing about this is you can make that a permanent group by edit, make group. And that will give you the whole thing. So on this one, I can go back and redo this one, make group, paint, and it will now paint the whole thing. If for some reason you need to get back into the group, you double click, and now you're back inside the group, and you can manipulate whatever's in here you want to manipulate. And no big deal. So as we take a look on my list, what I wind up doing is turn around and we get this going, and while I go through fairly quickly, half to 3/4 of a period for the first chair, then turn around and hopefully get to the second chair. Then the second day, go through the second chair. And then after that, on the third day, their next project after this is going to be to do their bedroom. So they have to get measuring and information in the first place. So let me go back to stop that for a second. And let me see, check. Okay, just checking out the chat parts to see if there's any questions. And let's go back to share screen. And this one. Nope, wrong one. There it is. So as you take a look, what I do is we go through the different added subtractive chair, additive chair, and then as I go through, I wind up explaining the chairs probably 3 to 4 times and keep catching a few more students. Somebody was absent and missed, and somebody, wasn't paying attention. And so I go through it 3 or 4 times. As soon as they're done with their chairs and they've got them made out of cherry, then they turn around and they're assigned to go through and make a table. They need them. They can use an additive method or a subtractive method. It doesn't matter to me. The chair or the table is going to be 6 feet by 4 feet, 30 inches high, and they may not be a rectangle. They must design some kind of shape. So in looking over on this side here, the picture of that I put up there, I tell them this is the table from hell that your grandmother has as a little kid is going to put dents in your forehead. And the thing is I say, you can't make it look like this, but in the end, it must be 4 feet by 6 feet. And then it's 28 inches to the bottom of the top. And then the top is 2 inches thick. And so we turn around, I keep the gentleman in here or the person, when whatever version you're using, I keep him in there for scale so it looks about the right size. And then they have to make the table to go with it. And so this is kind of their warm up to get ready to do their bedroom. On day 3, when they come in, basically I say, okay, no computers today. What you need to do is, we need to get ready for your bedroom. So the first thing, we get out a piece of binder paper and they have to write down the contents of their room, length, width, and height for their bedroom. And then we brainstorm all that, fill out all kinds of things and have them fill it out and write it in. And then when they're done, of course, you always get some student says, I don't have a tape measure. I can't do my homework. Ha, ha, ha. And they say, okay, I don't have to do it. And I say, well, you don't need a tape measure. All you need is your shoes. And you put 2 shoes, 1 on each hand, and you go around your room, putting them one toe to heel, all around the room. And as long as you measure everything with the same pair of shoes, everything's going to be proportional. It's not a problem. And so they can easily do that. I did have one student, though, that he had dirty shoes and had footprints going up the wall, and I heard about that from Mom because she had to clean it. And so I say, make sure your shoes are clean. But once they get done with that, I've given them a piece of binder paper or graph paper, and they have to make a map of their room and label things. And that gets attached to their final project when they turn it in. And so then the following day, they come back. You get plenty more time to work on tables and chairs and work with the paint bucket. There's the information for that there. And when they're all done, we turn around and I have them do screen captures, print screen, and paste them into a document. And I have them take 2 pictures of their room. They've added dimensions to it, so I know that their table is 6 feet by 4 feet. And then I know that they've made it a certain height. They put their 2 chairs in there, and they take a picture from top and bottom to show me how they did their table. And the table itself, I've gotten all kinds of wild table things that they can do. And it's just a blast. But then as they and get that done, this is the one day we have a print day. On that day, that's the day it's due. Everybody stop, take screenshots, put them in, print, and we're ready to go. And that's the sample document. To start their room, I tell them the day that we get going, they have to have their room sizes on a certain day. You'll get 3 or 4 stragglers that don't do their homework. As they don't do their homework and things, they turn around and then, well, I can't do it. I didn't do my homework. So I have them do an example just like mine. And so in my example, the room is always 10 feet by 13 by 8 feet high. When they start that, I tell them to add 6 inches for each wall. So there's going to be, instead of 10 by 13, it becomes 11 by 14. And so once they get done with that part of it, they're able to, then they make a 6-inch thick floor. If you don't make a floor, it has ramifications later on in that you try to extrude something and there's nothing there to extrude. So you want to make sure there's some kind of floor also. And then use the offset tool to make the walls, and I'll show you this in just a second. Pull them up and we'll go from there. So let's go back to, stop share for a second. And first off, before I go back and do this, any questions on that I can solve, or I wish this was hands-on. I wish we were in a room and you could all just go through and do it. So let's go back to share, Sketchup. So, well, I intended
Of course,
to.
this is sort of what we're facing is teaching it remotely.
Well, and part of it is, this is the first time I've done a Zoom. We did this in January at the middle school, and what I did was when we got on distance learning, one of the first things that they had as an assignment to do, they'd done their bedroom, and then I had basically using SketchUp for Schools online. I told them just start, take one room at a time, and just go through, measure your things, and start drawing and have a good time. Just do one room a week, and it was semi-successful with some of the students, but just since the students, it was really tough. With middle school, there's not really a lot of grading that they were pushing. They just wanted to have something for students to do. And so the end result was didn't have a ton of participation, but the kids that really wanted to work and do it, they got their whole house done. And they were really, they got into it and had a good time. So it was, the biggest problem is, I think, in doing it with the students on distance learning from home is going to be just hand over mouse to help them out a little bit if they haven't been able to see it at all. Like I say in this, like for the table, if I did 6 feet, 4 feet, enter, and then 2 inches thick, and one of the things with this is, as I was using this, there's a tool called the offset tool. And so on this, I brought in, and sometimes you can take and make this as rigid as you want by saying make it certain distances and sizes, or you can just say make it look good. And with a lot of what we're doing, since they don't know how to measure a lot of things, I told them make it look good. So in this case here, I had them come in 6 inches, and then I did an offset again and did 1 inch, and this becomes the apron to attach the legs to. 4 inches thick. Zoom in. They can do whatever kind of legs they want. I did 3 inch, so 1.5 inch radius. And one neat thing about the program is it does kind of behave like a word processor in that once you've made something, I can select it, edit, copy, and then I can move this into place. You don't want these to get into the edge. You want to keep them away just a little bit, but you can do edit, paste, and it works pretty well. So when you turn around the, oops, wouldn't let me escape. So you got all 4 legs in. Tell them to make the legs about 28 inches long. The closer you get, the closer you can make it right up to the apron if you want. Now their assignment is, like I say, my sample is they cannot leave it rectangle. So I make them cut off something. And most of them make it more oval, which is fine. I'm not going to do it all. Then once you get it in here, you're back to you have to rotate. So it brings in another tool that you have to work with. In the rotate tool, you want to rotate on a flat surface and a square surface. Get the horizon set, pull it up out of the ground, make it cherry, and then they're ready to go. So, and then my last thing would be to edit, make group. So now for their room, it's going to be 14 feet, comma 11 feet. Floors 0.5 feet, enter. Now for my walls, use the offset tool. Control Z does a lot of good when your finger slips. 0.5 feet thick. Now every room these students bring in is different. There's their room, but we can't see in it. So I tell them to take the room with the least stuff on it. Maybe a door, maybe something, it may be a window. But we take and get rid of one wall. Now you want to heal these walls back up. And I missed this one, of course. Now, I've healed them all up. So there's your basic room. And so I tell them I'm not worried about doors and windows particularly. They can put in a window where it's supposed to go. And Control Z. For some reason can't get it on the wall. The window, we can also, when you're all done, I have them take and put in, so sometimes they don't put it all the way through, and what you can do, you can also come back and later put in translucent panels, windows. Glass and mirrors. So I could take this and pick and now when you look out, you can actually see through it, and then they can import a tree later or a fence to put through so they can see it from the opposite side, and it kind of turns out pretty neat. The next part of when they're working on this is to start building things, and as they start building different stuff, one of the things that they can do is they can turn around and bookcases, dressers, 2 feet, 4 feet, enter, and say it's 6 feet high. A bookcase and a dresser can wind up being about the same thing. And they can get into it. Some students with great skills start doing a ton of measuring. Other students just come in, zoom in, and start putting in where they want stuff. I've had students put in open drawers, all kinds of different stuff. They may have a particular animal or cage in the room. You can have them make the cage, and then you can actually put an animal in a cage by importing graphics. So if I take and push this back, I can push this back to almost all the way through. Now I can infer this one to here. So there's a bookcase. Now, earlier when we were talking and I was making things a group, it's really important to edit and make your furniture a group. Because if you don't, when you go to move this into the bedroom, it winds up being, Control Z, I switched. Sorry. So now, when you get ready to move this in, if you don't put this in, and now it's into the ground a little bit, so I have to raise it up. If I hadn't made this a group and I went back to try and get this later, and I grabbed it like this, it would grab other pieces of the walls in the room and move it too. So in order for this to be a unit by itself and then reposition it, you have to make things a group. And so that makes a lot of different, it helps out a lot when you're working with things. I've gotten pretty good at doing bunk beds, pretty good at doing lots of different things. Nowadays with TVs, it's pretty cool. One of the last things, one of the things we leave for the very last day of the project before printing is to flower up their room. When I have them list everything in their room, I tell them, make sure you list all the posters and what they are. And it must be socially acceptable for school. If you're a young man with a picture of Megan Fox on the wall from Transformers and it's not appropriate for school and the principal would get mad, do not download that. But one thing you can do is go out to the internet and you can get a picture, and then you can go under File to Import, and whatever you saved on the desktop, some formats of pictures will not be allowed, but JPEGs work just great. So if they find a picture of whatever it is they want, and they want to put it, they've got the San Francisco Giants, emblem on the wall, or they went to the Giants game and had got the blanket and stuff and everything, and they have a blanket across their bed. They can easily find that, put it across their bed as a bedspread. And when I've shown these to parents at parent conference night, there's always been a whole bunch of people that look and go, that's his room. And they're so amazed that it can look so much. And it's what makes it their room isn't the ornate items in it, but it's the decorations. And so the decorations make it well. I've had instances where some kids had a bunk bed that was metal tubing, and I tell them, metal tubing you can do. There's certain ways you can do it, but sometimes it's way easier and such to just make it square. I'm not going to come knocking on your door and say it doesn't look anything like your room. That's something I'm not going to worry about. I also have them add a closet on the outside. So once they get this completely done, they can turn around and add a closet. And so if they turn around and come over here and do this, pull it out, make the floor the same as inside the room. Now you can offset. There are other ways of doing this, but I usually do it this way. And now we don't have a double wall here. The eraser cannot be your friend sometimes. It will erase things you want. Be really careful with the eraser. I tell them don't use it as much as you can. So if I complete this, come on. Now I can infer the walls. Now on the inside, sometimes when you put a floor in, there's a problem with the opening going through. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But there's their closet. Now they can add closet rod. Pull it across. Put a shelf above it. I think that's a little too close. But when you look inside, you've got your closet rod, you got a shelf. And so they're able to take a look and put that in. Carpet and fabrics choices are not great. But by the time they take and put stuff in, they can wind up with something that's really pretty nice. And it turns out well. Let's see, check for questions. I know it's just a lot of talking and going on. It'd be way better if you were doing it. Sometimes at different days I've given students, if there's a fire drill or something and they need time. it's easy to turn around and go, hey, turn on SketchUp, go in, get busy with SketchUp, you know, try every tool, see what, give them permission to play. A lot of times, especially for middle schoolers, they're just dying to fiddle and play around. And if you turn around and say, hey, you have permission just to play and try stuff out, they get doing some pretty wild things, and they really get kids all turned on with what to do and how to do it. And they have a blast. One of the main extensions, and when at the school for a while, I was doing a drafting class. And so the next step up from this that we did was, I told them that we did what I call the ultimate game room. And in the ultimate game room, I told them, your mom and dad won the lotto. Good news is they got a lot of money. Bad news is they didn't hit the big number and get millions. They only got a couple 100,000. So they can't buy new houses and do all this and move into mansions, but they are going to turn around, and I told them in a 1,200 square foot room, they're going to add a 30-foot by 40-foot room onto your house. And in there, you have to have something for everybody in your family. And so, you know, list mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, whoever lives with you, all your brothers and sisters, and you need to design what would be an ultimate game room. And, you know, what would you have in it? You might have you know, you want to have an eating area. You might want to have, you got to have a bathroom of some kind. And as you start portioning things out, I go, I don't want you dividing this up into little bitty cells and cubicles where, okay, that's my sister's room. She can go in there and leave me alone. You got to make it so it's a really nice, you know, entertainment space for everyone. If you want to design a, you know, a home theater setup, great. And so it gives them, then again, give them some graph paper. They start lining everything out. Once they have their plan and their list of what they want and who gets what, they get okayed, and boom, they're in the computer. And so it becomes 31 feet by 41 feet, put the walls in. And then one neat thing in Google is, or I mean, in SketchUp is that they have, I don't tell them about this till way later. In Google, they have a 3D warehouse. Come on, 3D warehouse. So inside here, they have a bunch of things that are already done. But when they start designing stuff for them to play with and their siblings, they can sit here and punch up a pinball machine. They don't have to make the whole thing, but here's a pinball machine. And so they have pool tables, they have skee ball, they have all kinds of stuff. And oops, you need to sign in to download models. Okay. Sorry. So as you pull this in, it'll take a second, but you can have them put things in their ultimate game room that when they zoom in and they take a look at stuff, some of these things look pretty darn cool. And so they have bowling alleys. They have all kinds of things that students can get into. I don't tell them about this because I don't want them to do their bed and everything out of the warehouse. I want them to make it. So their bedroom is all stuff they made completely. Then the ultimate game room, it gets to be a little bit easier. So they're getting a couple of more tools that will take them along and show them more things to do. Total hours for instruction in this room project is basically, by the time we go from beginning to end, it's about a 2-week project. And if they get all done and they're completely, some of the guys that have already been online and used it, they go absolutely crazy and they're done in a week. It's easy to give them the ultimate game room or design, what would you like your room to look like if you could do anything else you want to with it. So you can expand and do things that way, which isn't, it's easy to do extensions off of this because it's so open-ended. And one of the things we've had over the last 15 years, back in 2008, 9, whenever the recession was, we had a lot of people in town that would say, you know, a kid came up to me one day and goes, "Hey, I don't have a room. I sleep on the back porch." And it's kind of like, well, okay, hold it a minute. You're living at Auntie's house, and you know, all I can say is you need to go ask permission. Can you go measure one of the other rooms, or maybe the room your mom is in, and or your dad is in, and what can you do? But ask permission and get in there to do that, and see what you can do. If nothing else, I had some things graphited up that I could give them so that they could put something together. Some kids are moving. I go, well, do the best you can to think about how big the stuff was in your last house. And then I give them some basic sizes of a twin bed, a double bed, and a dresser, and then have them put some stuff together like that. And so there's a few modifications on that line, and it's kind of neat when that goes on. And you can give them permission to. Again, I'm not going to knock at your door and say you didn't do it right. You know, I'm not going to know if it's exactly perfect. You know, make it look good and do the best you can. And let me see, one of the teachers in the group. Inexpensive mice. I'm trying to think of. Right now, I know around our school, they're going through and they just took all the computers. Since I retired, they took all the computers out of the lab. They're gone. They're being shipped out. They're going to put Chromebooks in there. I would check with your technology department, because the big move over to Chromebooks, a lot of places where they had labs, they might have quite a few mice laying around that they're not giving away or dealing with. Our technology department's going nuts with all the supplies and equipment that they don't have a place to put it and such. So that's, again, I think the total hours for the room was about 2 weeks, including tables and chairs, and then we'd go another week to do the ultimate game room. And so in January, I was sick and in the hospital for a week, and we'd already gone over parts of some of the stuff with Sketchup, so it was easy to take and give them. They had the basic skills. For them to get turned loose with a sub, they had plenty to do, and they kept busy for the week I was gone. And I said, if when you come back, usually I wouldn't put kids in a computer lab with a sub, but I knew the sub, and the other thing was they had the basics. So once you have the basics, it goes pretty well. A lot of talking and stuff and everything. Sorry if I didn't cover something. Any questions? Yes.
Yeah, question. I'm trying to learn SketchUp, and I went on the free SketchUp, and I'm doing a modeling, and they were talking about putting it on 2-view viewing instead of 3D, and I can't. I'm just having a real tough time with it. I've looked at a lot of tutorials, and the keyboard, the keyboard that I have, or the whatever you call the toolbars, look different on the one I see on the videos then. And even yours look different than the free one.
Okay, so let me see real quick. Let's go back to share. And this one. Okay, and I shared the wrong one again. Where the heck did it? Okay. Now this is where my experience in this, there it is. Share. Okay, so one of the, let's answer this question first. Does yours look more like this?
No, it doesn't have everything on the top. It just has it on the two sides. Yeah, it looks like two sides, nothing on the top.
Yeah, so this top is just my browser and such. And when you look at the sides on this, so SketchUp for Schools, using Google, and a lot of people using Google, it's, you know, for Google Docs and everything else, Google in their district. This is the free version that comes online. underneath these, all of the tools I had across the top and down the side, they combined them into underneath the icons on the side all have multiple pullouts that will say it's more than one thing.
Yeah,
and
and
so
the
there's a
windows
whole
come
bunch of
out,
things
right?
in here. And the big deal is here's like there's out on all over the place you can find cheat sheets for what's there. And one thing you can do is for if you're using the Google for Schools with the online free version, go look for Google for Schools cheat sheet. And before I mail this out, I will put one into this and a link to it because it will explain. We were using this in school some, and then I'm retired, so I packed up everything. And as I was packing up, I wasn't thinking about doing this. And as I wasn't thinking about it, I couldn't find the papers that I had that I could have gone back to and put into this. So I've been reinventing the wheel since I put everything away, and it's all lost on hard drives or flash drives. But it will explain to you what's underneath each one of these tools and what they do. As far as the 2D version to 3D, I've stayed in 3D all the time. I never got into 2D. As we were working on this at the high school for my construction class, we went to the design build in Sacramento Regional Builders Exchange to build a shed. And when I did that, the only thing we had in class was to do our shed in SketchUp. And the architects that reviewed the thing, since you really don't have a scale because it's you can zoom in and out, they go, I should have put it in 2D and done this. I've never done that before. I always just worked in 3D and stayed in 3D because it really didn't become too big of an issue for the middle school kids. Trying to keep it simple, try to keep it in a 2-week time frame where they could get it, be done, have it, and go from there. So I know there's plenty of stuff out there about 2D. I just never really fiddled around with it much.
All right, thank you.
Sorry. Michelle, you had a question?
I was just wondering, does SketchUp lead to anything else? So I'm high school, and in my class we use SolidWorks, and SolidWorks, after they save their project, depending on what it is, then we can 3D print it. So does SketchUp lead to anything else, or is this just a standalone?
You can go into Save As, and there is, I've watched a couple YouTube videos on how to save as and 3D print from SketchUp. It is possible. Exactly what and how to do it, I never got into it. Again, it was a thing where at the middle school, we were only in there for a short period of time. If I had 10 more years to teach, one of the things would have been to put it into, figure out how to do it, get a 3D printer and export to a 3D printer.
So
we just never got that far.
You use SketchUp primarily just as a design, just teaching them design.
Correct. Again, 7th and 8th graders, get them to think about stuff, and then being at the high school also, I was able to say, if you get to the high school now, there's a drafting class, there's the auto class, there's my building trades class, and here's other things you can do with it up there. And so it was more of an exposure to get them to see what's there. And we also did a hand drafting part where they did it. We didn't have all the drafting tools, so they did it on just graph paper that I made. And they would do front view, top view, side view, oblique view of a block, and then cut up the block. And so it was introductory type things to be able to show them. And even when we did other, there was some computer drafting we did, it was all about showing them, wow, this is so much easier doing it on the computer. And it's like, yeah, you got to know the basics, but then here's how you apply it later and where it goes. And so, they hated lettering, but more kids could letter neatly by spending a week and a half working on letters. So lots of different ways to teach different things to them.
Okay, I do something similar. I bought some clear boxes from a local store, and I put a small item in it, and I tape it in just to teach them top view, side view, because it doesn't move, and then have them sketch that, and then tell them the box really isn't there. Imaginary.
That's very cool.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh.
Glenn, if I may, this is Don DuPont. I taught SketchUp as well, and I found it very easy to do 3D printing from it. Now, I've been retired for 4 years, so I can't remember the exact process of doing it, but it was very simple to do.
Okay. That's what I've heard some places, and I say the one video, I just never had the 3D printer set up at the same time. I was close enough to SketchUp to do it. And my son's the 3D printing expert in the family now. But anyways, that's 10:50. I hope you got something out of it. I will go through, let me see here. I will copy and paste everything from chat so I can send you that other paper. And I will get that out to you so you have the information.
Thank you very much.
And if there's any other questions, my email's at the top of that one, and I can send you anything else or something you want to get back from that.
Great.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks.
Pardon me, Brad?
It's very good.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, good job, Brandon.
All right. Thanks a bunch. Have a good rest of the conference.
You too.
You bet. Now, the stress is off. Thank you, Roxy.
No problem. Did you get everything in the chat?
Yeah, I got everything copied in the chat, and let me see one sec. I'm going to copy it one more time because there are a couple more added. I got it copied and I'll paste it into Word so I can go back and get stuff out of it.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Have a good day.
You too.